This is Iska, who is considered the youngest sacred follower in the history of the empire. He was about to be promoted, but before his date, he decided to liberate Bansar Iran from the desert, which was imprisoned in the empire's jail, and was happy to escape. This is also about money, and due to the ongoing war of over 100 years between them and the desert, this act is considered a major crime. That's why they decided to imprison him and strip him of the title of High Disciple. But after a year, the officials decide to release him and say that they are ready to give him another chance to atone for what he did if he carries out a certain mission. At that time, they can release him from prison. This mission is to kill one of the witches, but she is not just an ordinary witch. She is from the lineage of a great witch named Nublis. In the past, the witches of Nublis tried to destroy this empire, which is literally hell from God. The descendants of these witches are called the Originals, and they have strong astral spirits. Very much so. The goal of his mission was to capture the brother of the witches among the descendants, which was published under the name of the Ice Disaster. As soon as Aska learns of his mission, he is freed from his chains and his swords are returned to him. The officials decide to provide a transport vehicle for him, and they know that they are ready to provide anything for his mission to be carried out. Aska asks them to include 3 people in his squad. They agree, and he goes to the first one of them, whose name is Jin, and asks him to gather the rest of the people in his group. Jin goes to a girl named Nini, who was working in a restaurant. She is surprised by Jin's visit to her. She asks him about the reason, so he tells her that Aska, outside and Kamna moving to plan the UN meeting at midnight. After that, Jin reaches the girl who is left from their team, whose name is Miss. At night, Jin is the first to arrive at Aska, so he thanks Aska for helping him gather the team at the initial time, but Jin was used to it because this is Aska's habit. Anyway, after that, Nini arrives in the car that they will move in to carry out the mission and goes to congratulate Aska for getting out of prison. Miss arrives last and apologizes for being late, and we learn that she is the leader of their team and she is also 22 years old and is considered the oldest one among them. They will have a rank, and that's why she was responsible for them, and she was happy when she saw them gathered again, and he found out that this was their team before Aska was imprisoned, and they gathered again to carry out the mission after Aska was released from prison. And that's why they are all excited and they come to the mission location. And on the way they talk about its details, and Miss is surprised that Aska's target is the Ice Witches, and she feels, no. And because she heard that this magic penetrated the borders of the empire once by itself and returned once again alone, and it is also said that she is the strongest star magic in history, but Jin tries to reassure her and tells her that this magic does not know anything about Jessica, and not even the Neapolitan sovereignty knows that any information, and she is an unexpected person for them. Although it was still not yet settled, Aska was determined to carry out this mission and decided not to think about any possibility of failure because he was determined to end the war completely. After a while, they arrived near their important place and discovered that there was a huge reactor there, but it was not completed yet and did not have sufficient protection. This indicated that the available forces were busy in the desert sites due to the ongoing attack on the Empire. The Empire dealt with a reactor in the sovereignty of the nebulous desert and attacked them in order to foil their plan. The Empire is working on more weapons and so on. He continues, saying that his master told him that whatever the reason for the war's beginning, which has kept it going until now, is largely emotional. This means that logic won't be able to solve it, and the only solution for the war to stop is the emergence of a powerful individual who uses their strength to compel both sides to cease fighting, even if it means that this person is hated. They arrive at the reactor and head to the important location. On the way, he learns that the forces are ready but haven't launched any attacks yet and are waiting. But the desert penetrates their defenses and attacks their car, and they manage to get out of it at the last moment. What they are supposed to do in this situation dries up, but misfortunes never come. A sudden fire attack comes at Gin, but Aska takes notice. The attack boils over and diminishes him, but the matter ends there. A large group appears from the desert from underground. Despite the surprise, Aska and Gin were expecting something like this indeed. After that, Aska asks for 2 assistants, and until he regains his full senses. This is the first time he has fought in a long time. They all prepare, and within seconds they appear, disperse the desert and take advantage of Aska. He defeats the entire desert in the blink of an eye with the help of Gin. Do you think that this is the end of the matter? Another golem appears from underground, and the desert that they made stand on is attacked by them and torn apart by their strength, but Aska easily restores these 2 mountains, and the desert is shocked. Then he asks the Jin and Nini users to help the front defense forces, but he kills the witch alone. She agrees to a counterattack, and Eska continues to confront the witch, so she attacks him with a very strong attack, but Eska overcomes him and easily defeats him. The witches suspect him and ask him, "Are you following the saint?" But Eska refuses to answer her question unless she tells him who the ice witch is. But the witches angrily refuse and tell him, "This is in your dreams." She continues to attack him, but he overcomes her and she has no solution but to surrender. She says that she is ready to die, but she is a prisoner in the Empire and tries to pull him and attack him again, but he restrains her easily. But suddenly he feels a large stellar energy, so he quickly moves away from her. Here, the ice disaster appears. These are the witches that he was developing on, and they begin to freeze the whole place, even the reactor. We know that the witches who were facing Aska at the beginning were her personal assistant, whose name is Rin, and her job was to pull Aska away from the reactor so that the ice witches could freeze him. But the ice witches... You wonder how your boss can cancel Train's power so easily, and you think that you are the one who made the sound of the voice asking him to take it away. Iska refuses to surrender, so she asks him his name, and Iska answers her, so she introduces herself to him and says that her name is Alice. After that, Iska launches to attack her, but she does one of her spells and attacks him with 1,000 Galadian swords. Although Iska was refusing, he blocks most of them because he is in the end and is forced to discover a hidden power in his sword in order to block her attack with an attack similar to his. He launches to attack her, but she uses the Galadian flower shield, so Iska is unable to penetrate it. She asks him to surrender, but he refuses to give up. He will stop this war, stop this war, stop this war. As soon as she hears that he wants to stop the war, she decides to back down and says that she will not unite this world by herself. She is surprised while she is talking. She works on the ice rock that she was standing on, and the scar on her face is removed, but Iska is able to hold her before she sits down. He is able to see her actual appearance, so the witches get nervous and decide to back down quickly. She takes out her bird so that she can walk. From today on, Iska cannot sleep well, so the leader tries to talk to him and feels that what is happening to him is because of his confrontation with. So she suggests that he go somewhere to change the atmosphere, and they take her home and invite her to coffee and exchange the ticket for the play that she had bought. And this play was in a neutral land between the desert and the empire, so he succeeds in taking the ticket and decides to actually go. The next day they take the mourner on a bag that he received, so he sleeps a little on the road and dreams about his teacher. But when he comes back, he is surprised because he has not dreamt about him for a while, and he suspects that this is because he returned to using his swords again after a while. He reaches the police station and we discover that the woman is a snack girl and she was captivated by the offer and she stutters. By coincidence, Iska was sitting in the seat behind her, so he offers her his handkerchief. Indeed, they take it, but they can't see each other in the darkness. After the show, the lights come on and Ellis tries to talk to Iska to pay him for the handkerchief, but they are shocked when they see each other. The princess thinks Iska is coming to follow her and decides to attack him, but Rin, who is with her, stops her because this show is neutral and any fighting is prohibited. If they kill, all the neutral lands will turn against them, so she calmly surrenders to Iska, lets him be, and walks away. As soon as they step out, they make sure whether Iska is following them or not. After that, they go to a restaurant to eat, but unfortunately, they discover that all the tables are reserved. The waiter offers them to share a table and they agree, and by chance, for the second time, they take the same table that Iska reserved for himself. He thinks that he has set a trap for them, but he explains to them what happened, and they refuse to get up so that Iska doesn't think they're scared of him or anything. They are going to eat together again. The same tables asked for Eski matched the princess's request. When the food arrives, they find their orders in sync, unlike Rin's. The princess returns to her palace, while Rin worries about meeting Iska often. Despite Iska's insomnia, the princess also struggles to sleep. The next morning he practices with his team and meets Risa, the human defense advisor. She informs him that his team will be under her command for the next mission. Iska, troubled by insomnia, wasn't alone. The princess also struggled to sleep. Eventually, Iska dreams of fighting monsters as a child, aided by a sorceress. The next morning, he practices with his team and meets Risa, the human defense advisor. She informs him that his team will be under her command for the next mission and discusses his insomnia. Risa mentions an art exhibition ticket she won but isn't. He has a card on the closing of the art exhibition in the neutral land of the art of the empire and in the neutral land of the art of the empire. This is because she won it as a gift, but she is not interested in art and she knew that Aska loves this and it can help him clear his mind. At the same time, the princess was with her mother, the queen, who was talking to her about Aska, and she felt that there was something hidden from him, because with his strength, this commissioner is the bearer of an empire as one of the saints. She also told her that since she was killed with him, the bond between her and the institution began to weaken. We know that this institution had been alive for 100 years, but it entered a general sleep after the death of her sister and mother. The empire didn't know that it had a sister, so it thought she was the one who died. The queen suspects the bond weakens due to the institution's powers. She asks for an explanation, and Ellis recalls Iska's actions but keeps it secret. The queen wants to investigate and tells Ellis to avoid battlefields unless someone knows about Iska. Ellis attends the exhibition. Ellis questions Iska's presence. Iska says the artist is from the empire. She replies art knows no boundaries. She avoids him, taking a different path, yet ends up where they met. She approached him, but he was far away. Iska was there, and she approached him again. But by coincidence, for the third time, they meet at the entrance of the exhibition. Ellis feels wronged and tells him that his visit to the neutral lands is quite strange. Iska clarifies that the artist who created this exhibition is from the empire, and it's odd for her to be here. She responds by saying that art knows no boundaries. He suggests that they go in together, but she avoids him and walks away, taking a different path. However, she ends up back at the same spot where they first met. Iska sees her there and tells her that he wandered around the exhibition for a bit. But what about the attack? That's why they broke the Husseinia. Tuk 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 tuk. He convinces her to go in together because even if they are enemies, art knows no boundaries, just like she said. So they enter the exhibition together and start admiring the paintings, especially the one Ellis was fond of. After, she brings him his juice, insisting he take it, or else she'll owe him. She also sits down to talk with him, asking him about his age. and she knows that he is 16 years old. She says that she is 1 year older than him, and suddenly Asuka falls asleep while talking to him. Even though they are enemies, she calls for a taxi to get him to the Empire. The next day, Asuka gathers with his team to finish some work, and a message reaches them from Risa asking Asuka to visit them at the Imperial Council. Indeed, Asuka goes there and talks to the officials, who object, and they say that they are impressed that he can stop the magicians. But they know that he seeks peace, but he will not be able to gather more supporters for his goal because the entire empire knows that he is a criminal, and for this reason they decide to change their conditions and ask him to arrest the Galdian disaster mages. After the meeting, Ask returns to his home thinking about what happened and his meeting with Alice, and decides to go the next day to the surrounding land to meet her. He speaks to the leadership to get to know them, so they agree, but on the condition that she goes with him. She says that you have been exhausted lately, and we will not let you go alone. There, he agrees to your name on her condition, and at the same time, the princess who was thinking of going to Rin tells her that she has new information about Hinsika. You know that he was the successor of the crown prince, and that he was the youngest person to take this history, and that he was one of the most skilled swordsmen. But he was imprisoned when he helped a woman from the desert escape from the Empire's prison. But Silas did not understand that he was the one who did this, even though they were enemies. And for this reason, she asked Rina to search for her more about the matter and to search for the girl who silenced her and helped her escape. After that, the queen went to her and talked to her about the exhibition she attended, and she was excited because this artist was one of the Empire's artists, and she said to her, "Don't do that again and bring her from the soldiers of the Empire, then leave her and walk away." But this motivates Alice and makes her decide to go and meet Eska again and understand from him the reason that made her free the magicians herself, and decides the next day to go to the neutral land without any arrangements. The next day Eska moves with Mace as he told her, but she did not know where he was going or who he would meet. She is surprised that he did not arrange a meeting with anyone and is going to try his luck, but she decides to continue with him and help him. And when he approaches them from the gates of the neutral land, she sees Mace, Elis' bird, who she admires without knowing that. But Eska thinks that Ellis has an extra bird, so he asks Maze to stop the car at the city gate and continue on their way because he doubts that the princess will be there. Indeed, they both meet at the gate lion, but Maze is embarrassed by this girl, so she notices Ellis and introduces herself. Maze feels afraid when she first learns her identity, to the point that she hides behind Eska, but they try to reassure her and move away from people so that they can talk comfortably. After they wave to a place far from people, she speaks. She sits with Iska and asks him about the reason for his betrayal of the Empire and why he decided to help the desert dwellers. He tells her that she was his little girl, about 12 years old, and her magical power was weak, but the Empire was determined to capture her because they were trying to gather the Sahirat, and this did not please Asuka. So Alice is surprised by his reaction because he is contradictory because he tried to capture her in the forest the first time they met, to the point that she suspected that his goal had changed after he went to prison, but he tells her that his goal is still the same, which is the reason that made him return, and he was determined to capture her in order to trick Salam because if he took "Here are the strong ones from the desert," then they might make a peace treaty with the Empire in exchange for handing over the hostage. So she tells him that she believes him, but this plan won't work for her even if he takes her hostage because the queen won't surrender or sign that peace agreement. He has no idea how the desert dwellers feel about the Empire, but despite that, she is surprised that someone in the Empire is trying to stop the war. That's why she offers to cooperate with him and be at his service. Reen is shocked and tells her that she is being hasty and that no one among them will agree to this idea at all. But Elise stops talking and continues her offer to Iska, assuring him that she can guarantee it. And she delivered it herself. Mies is shocked and decides to respond to her, but suddenly the ground shakes in a strange and complete way. Sama transforms and the sorceress emerges from her, making Messi think it's a trap. She tells them it's not fair because there's no rivalry between her and Iska, but strangely, the sorceress attacks all of them, even the character at the same time. The queen feels a huge magical energy, so she decides to go down to the organization and is shocked to find that it's not there, which means it's active again. She feels a new happiness because this way they can easily take over the empire. Meanwhile, Iska and our friends are dealing with the aftermath of the attack. The institution is transforming and trying to convince them that the institution is not unfair to them, but rather it is an individual unit that has become the third defense system of the Star Force. And they didn't know why the system activated, upsetting Alice as the organization disrupted her deal with Iska. She tries to stop it, but the organization attacks. Rain blocks it but gets caught. Alice fears for Rain, but Iska reassures her to use her ice power. She takes Rain to the hospital and clears the chaos. Meanwhile, Alice tries. Bia goes down with Ailes to stop the institution. He takes out his sofa, which was known as Crossoha, and says from the institution, "When you see them, you know that they are the reason for her waking up." Ask is surprised that she knows his sisters. He asks her how she knows them, but she doesn't answer him and starts attacking him. He immediately repels the attack, and Alice also helps him. The organization starts attacking her because she is an ally, but Alice is really shocked by her because she is upset, and she is determined to bring her and Ask back to sleep again because the era they are in doesn't need her. Even though they united their powers to face her, her strength was greater than theirs, to the point that Alice was on the verge of giving up. But Iska insists on holding on and tries to convince her to reconsider her decision. She decides to strike at him and returns to her senses, coming back much stronger. She uses her power to distract the organization from Iska for a while, and indeed her plan succeeds. However, the organization hits her with its attack, and even though the attack was strong, Alice gets back up and uses her power to create peace. Telgia is happy to get drunk and reach the institution. She also uses her defensive arms to protect against its attacks, and finally, Iska manages to cut off its wings and puts it to sleep again. After this battle, each of them returns home, and the situation remains the same, with Freet Miss under Teresa's influence. They have a mission coming up, but Risa tells them to take a 2-week break beforehand. Even though it's a vacation and they should be happy, Messi feels anxious because it seems like the mission is going to be a big one. The important thing is that a week of vacation passes and the next week Miss decides to take B. The team is playing to lift their spirits a bit, and also because Messi wants to win the grand prize, which will happen if she wins one of the games available there. In the place they went to, the prize was a large sum of money, and Misa wanted to buy a new tank to use to protect them while escaping if something happened while they were on the mission. And to make matters worse, Yalis went to the same place they were in, but this time not by her will. Rin was the one who convinced her to change the atmosphere there. She was going to play and waste her time, and she wasn't interested in the prize, but because of her good luck, she was able to win the grand prize on the first try. Everyone was surprised by her, so Nin went. She blesses her. Since Ellis doesn't need the silver coins she has because she won't be playing anymore, she decides to give them to Nini. And of course, none of them knows each other's identity. Fortunately for Messi, Nini returns with the money because Messi had spent all her cash and didn't know how to win or even how to play. The engineer feels something and asks Nini about the girl who helped her, but she says she doesn't know her. However, she describes her as a very beautiful girl with curly hair, and it's clear that she looks like a princess. He doubts the story but decides not to think too much about it. As for Alice, the game ends and she goes for a walk with Rin and comes across a fortune teller's shop. Because she is naive, she is forced to go in and try her luck to know more about Iska because she thinks a lot about the past days. Anyway, this witch tells her that Iska is closer to her than she imagines, so Yalis doubts her words because there are some things in what she says that are true but not specific. She smiles at her. Rin goes out again and they walk. After that, we see Iska at the same woman's house and he goes in to see her. She tells them the same thing. At the same time, we see Risa in a meeting. With the help of the officials, they were talking about the vortex of Unit 47 reported on its back in the southwest of the Moodle Valley. Although there are forces that they are in charge of, they need more supplies, so they decide to remove someone named Nameless, who is the successor of the Black Falazi, and thus Mace's team will be with them as well. They let Risa choose the appropriate excuse that will convince the team, and they decide to exploit their friendship with Mace. Despite this, Risa agrees, telling them that she wants something in return, and that her rank increases like every time, and she abandons her friends. It is clear that she is used to this talk. She talks to Miso and the rest of the team and tells them to forget everything about the training she sent them as they will go on an urgent mission, and given your position, it is possible that she will appear and a powerful witch may appear with her, and she tells them that she will depend on them since they stopped the holy witch who came before. She sends a message to Alice from her sister Cecil informing them they sent this position south and that the Empire has sent forces there, and she says that she did not receive information from Butter because the Zoe family was late. In reporting it, Alice complains that they want to exploit the work for their own benefit, and she decides to post a link to discover it herself. Alice goes to the strange Zob's family palace. No one welcomes her because they welcomed her even though she is the queen's daughter. So Alice begins, but suddenly a boy appears from behind him holding a knife and wearing a mask. So he reveals his existence button and begins to act rudely. But he tells her that he held the knife because his astral power is weak and he is afraid that anyone will attack him suddenly. He asks them about the reason for their presence. So Alice asks about the vortex. So he tells her that it is just an outflow of flesh and volcanism and that there may be a deception. There are no signs of the vortex's existence at all underground. She asks why no one reported it. The family head is still preparing. Mace goes to the team's meeting to face the vortex. She meets Shino. Nimless arrives. The meeting starts. There are no specific orders. Their mission is to protect the vortex from sorceresses and destroy it if they fail. Teams search for the vortex but find nothing. Frims continue searching until they get a call from Neuro. It's 3-8, and I'm starting the meeting with everyone present. Instead of visual camouflage, Picklips tells everyone present that he will not give them any special orders, but their mission is to protect the vortex before the witches enter. He also orders them to destroy the vortex if they fail to protect it, and not to get in his way at all, because his goal is to destroy the star energy forces, and he will not allow anyone to stop him. As soon as the meeting ends, the team starts searching the vortex, but they do not reach any result. Frames continues searching, but they receive a call from a woman named Noro, who says, they lost contact with one of the teams, specifically the 2 communication units responsible for the investigation, and there's no evidence of the Star Force's involvement in what happened. So, Mace and the rest of the team decide to return to base to find out if there have been any changes. It's not just them returning, even the rest of the team is coming back. Nimless holds a meeting with them and informs them that there are only 3 missing teams, so it's not worth sending rescue forces specifically for them. He orders them to focus solely on locating the vortex. However, Iska objects to his decision and his team because there are more than 10 people missing. Iska decides to speak up about how they were He tries to talk to him, but he doesn't agree because he considers him a traitor and tells him that his response must be high enough for him to talk to him. Misty decides to intervene and speak on behalf of Eska because she is his leader and asks him to send a rescue team to search for the missing units, as Eska wanted, but the son of a pig ignores him, and even though he heard them, when night falls, Alice decides to move to the farewell to investigate the matter of the vortex. At the same time, we see the masked man preparing to do something with a girl from his family named Kisheng. She takes Alice to the valley and discovers that the vortex actually exists. At the same time, the masked man arrives, and when she confronts him about the vortex, he tells her that they have just discovered it and were still reporting it. After that, he introduces her to the little girl who was with him. He tells her that she will deal with the vortex herself, but Alice suspects him and asks him if he intends to exploit the power of the vortex in order to wage a comprehensive war on humanity. And Time is honest with him, his words are not distorted, and at that time you notice that there is a stellar force coming from the base location, but it is different from the force coming from the vortex. A message is sent to them informing them that the source of this force is stellar technology, so Jenny feels that the stellar forces have infiltrated their midst and that they are the ones who kidnapped the missing units. They decide to continue searching for the vortex and they are able to reach it, but they were not the first people to discover it. At the same moment, Nuri's group arrives and informs them from the Nablus authorities. They set a trap in the valley and are trying to capture all the forces of the Imperial Army. Suddenly, Nuri takes a mask here and threatens the rest of the team not to move. She reveals the desert mark on her link and they are all surprised when Misoha attacks, laughing at her naivety. But at that moment, they hear the voice of Commander Nameless, who tells them that but they see him because of his suit and he attacks all the desert with her except Nora. We know that Nameless knew that there was a betrayal between them, and when he tries to attack Nora and one of the desert people who caused his attack makes a final attack to disable Nameless. Nora takes advantage of the situation to get Miso and escapes, so Nameless tries to attack her but Asuka stops him, and with Gin's orders he throws a tracking device at the car that Nora escaped in, and the reason that made him do this is that Miss was going to catch Nora. That's why they threw the tracking device on the car until they knew where it was, and then they went to check on it. But Nimless was determined to continue with his plan to protect the vortex. Meanwhile, Norfa goes to the masked man with Miso, and we learn that this was their plan from the beginning. They had been planning from the start to eliminate one of the Empire's soldiers. Alice was there and was shocked when she saw Miso, feeling scared because no one knows that she met Iska in the neutral city. She is afraid that Nimless will expose her, and indeed Miso was about to do that. But Reem quickly strikes her, causing her to lose consciousness. After that, she blames Noor for bringing an unknown person from the enemy's forces to them, but deep down, she feels a connection with the many coincidences that link her to Iska. However, Alice reassures her and decides to take action herself, asking Noor to leave the matter of the Imperial forces to her and just find out the location of the Imperial army camp. As soon as she learns, she rushes there excited to fight Iska again. Meanwhile, Jinfa notices the footprints of Alice's golem and reports it. Isig that they have a pursuer and that I am informing them that in this state they have 2 hours to save Maze, and this is before the Shrike is released on the Whirlpool, but the shock is that at the same moment the Shrike is released from them, so they are surprised that they released it early in this way. They know that the second Shrike will be released in about 20 minutes, at which time the accuracy of the rules will be better, and that is why they must hurry to save Maze before she gets injured. Indeed, they move to the desert base. At this time, Nura tries to exploit Maze and the Kinsik arrives at the right moment and stops her. Kishing also arrives at the same moment and starts using her powers. Her strength was so amazing that Asuka felt nervous because she was a purebred, so he freed Miss Mingoda and ordered her to hide behind Ales, so she went to Asuka's base. Suddenly, Nameless arrived in disguise and tried to attack her, but Nameless sensed him and saved her using her intuition and was injured instead. At the same time, Kishen continued to attack Asuka, but he was able to block all of her attacks, so she was shocked and did not understand how he was able to do this, but suddenly, she uses her awesome power and creates a missile similar to the one that Al-Qaeda attacked them with, and they hit it towards Eska. At the same time, Alice is facing Nameless, but Nameless is able to block her attacks. Even the size of 1,000 ice swords can block them. He takes advantage of Alice's attack and attacks her at the same time. If it weren't for Ren's intervention, Alice would have been seriously injured, but Alice wasn't using her full strength to fight him, so she decided to start dealing with her seriously. In seconds, the whole place around him froze. Nameless manages to escape at the last moment before he freezes with the place, and that's why Alice decides to go to their base again. But suddenly she sees a terrible explosion from there, and this explosion was because of the scorpion that Kitching made, and even though Kitching used the scorpion with this power, Iska comes out safe and unscathed and not even a small wound, but is condemned by the fighting style that a small girl like Kitching uses and asks her who knows this style, but she ignores the question. She continues to attack him with greater force, and despite this, Beta silences her and makes her lose consciousness. When he tries to take her with him, the masked man arrives at the last moment and attacks him. But fortunately, Iska moves his body quickly and avoids this fatal injury, but he is deeply wounded despite avoiding the attack. He is shocked by the sudden appearance of the masked man and asks him who he is, but the masked man hesitates to answer and takes Chishing and throws the vortex away, then runs away. Iska is surprised, but he does not care about anything other than saving Miss. Although she considers the vortex a source of danger to them, he calls it after him. At that moment, Alice arrives and sees him. They jump behind Asuka, who can catch Miso. They fall and reach a picture, so she calls him and says that she is willing to help them, but on the condition that he kills her when they get out. Asuka agrees to her condition. Indeed, they are able to catch them, but the astral energy in the dome suddenly increases and divides the two of them, separating them from each other, and each one of them goes to his base. Time passes and you notice that Alice can't stop thinking about Asuka since this incident, and so she suggests that they go look for her to finish the fight, that they both outdid them, and because Alice was very excited about the fight, she gets excited about the idea and decides to go to the neutral city. As for Asuka and Miss, they return to their headquarters in the Imperial City, and Miss feels bad about her actions and isolates herself from them because she caused them problems. Strangely, ever since she got caught in that vortex, she started feeling something strange in her arm, and she didn't know the reason for it. At that moment, Risa arrives and informs them about a new mission for them. This mission involves breaching the Napoleonic sovereignty, which was the secret mission she had told them about before. They learn that the purpose of this mission is to capture the queen, and Iska is shocked when he hears this. At that moment, he can't believe it and tells her to stop with that nonsense. Asuka tells him that she is right and thinks that she is really joking, but she is surprised that Asuka does not agree to the mission in this way, unlike the repetition. Asuka replies and tells her that they are really used to illogical requests, but this mission is considered impossible. Teresa tells them that she is talking seriously and tells them that they can succeed because they are talented. At this time, Jin asks her about her plan, especially since the witches have a system that simulates the star power. She tells them that the witches use something like the Zero Passport called Star Hair, and anyone who doesn't have this hair is considered a target for the Empire's spies. That's why you need to finish it.